Melanie is an American singer-songwriter best known for her 1971 global hit, Brand New Key. And she's with us here just now. How are you doing?
I'm great, but I'm always surprised when I'm best known for Brand New Key. But that's okay, because there was, look what they've done to my song-in-law and Candles in the Rain with Edwin Hawkins singers. And that was all before. And Beautiful People. Beautiful People, I think, is one of the most well-known songs, but it's okay. You can say Brand New Key. I don't care.
Absolutely. To be honest, the real reason I only mentioned the one is because if I listed them all, we'd be here all day.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about listing. It's just, it's funny that that's the one, that is the one. But, people get known for stupider things than that.
Yeah, that's certainly true. So I think we can do this chronologically to start with. What was your musical upbringing like at the very beginning?
The very beginning, I grew up in a culturally diverse household. My grandmother was an immigrant from Italy via Brazil, and my uncle was a union organizer with, sang Woody Guthrie songs and Pete Seeger songs. And my mother was a jazz singer. She was a fan of Billie Holiday and Peggy Lee. And so musically it was very diverse. My grandmother would be walking in the street. I'd walk along with her and she would just break into song and some Italian song. And it was fine when I was little, but when I got a little older, I thought, oh, please, Grandma, don't do that. But, it's so amazing, that people can be uninhibited, because she was from a generation that didn't watch themselves, because there wasn't a TV motive, they didn't believe that. I mean, today people actually think that somebody's videoing their life, they walk out the door ready to be filmed, It's a very self-conscious time.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we're living in a Big Brother age.
Not only are we watching ourselves, but others are watching us as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. So was it pretty inevitable then, growing up around all these musical people, that you would have a go at it yourself?
No, I never really thought that was something a person could do. It was my generation that gave rise to, first of all, extreme nepotism, and also the idea that it was a good thing to be a famous person. Because in my upbringing, the thought of your child becoming an artist or a poet or a singer or a songwriter was the most risky kind of a life. And nobody would encourage their child to do that, But again, the children of the Woodstock generation, everyone thought that my son could be the next Mick Jagger, So, but I think it was a little healthier before, when it is a really hard life to be an artist. You're a target, and now there's no line, there's no line where you say this is your private life and that's your public life. There's no such thing. I still do that, I still, I don't like everything known. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, what I do in everyday life's not that interesting, unless I had to try to make it interesting. And either way, it's bad. So I like to, be known for the songs and making music and performing and hopefully, continuing to do that.
It's weird that other people seem to like sharing every little detail about their life, and in a way it sort of ends up ruining their life because they're just surrounded all the time. Well,
you're not actually being in the moment. You're picturing what other people will perceive as your moment, know. So it's, I think social media is very unsocial. But, it is what it is right now. People have to awake in their own way. I think I've talked to so many people who are kids, like I would consider you a kid. who, are awakening. They're awakening to the idea that they've been brainwashed, and that things maybe aren't as they seem or have been told they are. We are products of bombarding with information, and the people with the most money to do that are the ones who get their point across.
Yeah. Well, did you ever dream that you would become as big a musician as you have become, or did you just want to be a singer and not a superstar?
Yeah, I just sang. I wrote songs ever since I was a little girl. I wrote songs. Early on, I wrote like torch songs, like the kind of songs my mom would sing, There was a singer, Julie London, and she was very dramatic and svelte, and she had a song called Cry Me a River. And I thought, oh, I want to write a song like that, and so I would write, these imitation, very adult themed songs, having no idea what I was talking about, just from pure imitation, like sort of just pronouncing words in foreign languages and not knowing what they mean.
And inspiration just comes from all sorts of places, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, really, the most unlikely places, really. Yeah. I hardly ever write when I'm really miserable, which is supposed to be where you write, but it's after the misery, when you're I'm not going to die. I can express all that stuff that was pent up before. But inspiration. I think about the way I grew up. It was a really great time. My parents, I grew up in New York City. My parents left me alone. They didn't meddle with my head, which I think is another good thing. That was, children are just prodded, and what do you think about that? And what does Bobby feel when mommy does that? And I think that's intrusive, like kids, first of all, they don't know how to articulate really. So they might make up something in the same way that, you mouth sounds. And like I wrote songs about, how could you leave me like this? I was 4 years old. I didn't know anything about that, but there was just something that it was alluring, that idea of the romance.
Yeah. I think somebody told me recently that after the age of about 7, your personality isn't really you anymore. It's just stuff that you've learned, and it's kind of fake, which is kind of scary, to be honest.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I'm really glad my parents left me alone. Because, I'd go out on a Saturday morning and I'd come home when it was time to eat. That was it. Nobody asked me what I did and who I saw, and if anybody touched me in an inappropriate way or any of that. None of that. It was just, I went out. I was a kid. I played with dolls. So I was about 12. I wasn't a television kid. I was pretty much out there. I read a lot of books. I was a book reader. And so the pictures in your head become your own visions. Whereas, watching a vision of somebody doing something on a TV or a movie screen, they're somebody else's pictures, and you start translating those pictures. I remember the first experience I remember about that. It was, I loved Audrey Hepburn. I mean, when I saw Breakfast at Tiffany's for the first time, I wanted to be Audrey Hepburn. And I called my first cat, which is the name of her cat in the movie. And I would look in the mirror and project Audrey Hepburn on my cherubic, less than angularness, and I would almost see her in me. And so, I mean, that's interference in a way, but, you try to figure it out, figure out who you really are.
Yeah. And I guess your parents not interfering with you, I take it that's very different to them neglecting you. They were still there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, it would be probably, considered neglect, at this age, but No, I was thrilled
Yeah.
because I wanted to be in my own world. You know, I didn't want to be in a grown-up world. I mean, what fun was that? You know? And so I was very happy. I'd go out, and there was a vacant lot around the corner where a building had been, and they demolished it. And I would dig in the, I guess, whatever they used as a foundation, had a lot of beach sand. And I would find shells. And for a New Yorker who didn't get to the beach an awful lot, you know, this was magic. And I wanted to be an archaeologist and dig, you know, or an anthropologist and find these treasures and secrets and, you know, get answers.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So how did you first get discovered as a musician then?
Yeah, well, my dad had ambitions for me. And he wanted me to be a debutante and wanted me to have a coming out party, and all his friends in business, their daughters were doing this. So he thought this was a good thing, and he wanted me to go to college. And I was so miserable with traditional education and not blending. You know, I didn't ever really, I wanted to blend, but somehow that just didn't happen. And so I was always the oddball. It was pre-hippie labeling. So it was, you know, a beatnik, maybe oddball. I was from New York, and when I went to high school, I was just plopped into an environment where everybody grew up together and they knew the same people from when they were little, and they all knew everything about each other. And here I was, the stranger from New York. And so it was, maybe that was where it all started. I felt like I just never belonged. So I was, you know, a person who didn't think that that's what I was going to do. Actually, celebrity on my leftist side of the family was highly suspect. You know, anybody worthy wouldn't be a famous person, you know, in any kind of music or anything. So my dad wanted me to be, you know, go to college and follow that route, marry a rich guy and, you know, have a happy life and have kids and all that stuff. And I didn't, you know, see doing that. I ran away from home.
Wow.
And, you know, you don't realize when you're not a parent and you're a kid and you think they're your parents, they're tough, they'll take care of themselves. I had no idea how devastating this would be. And I didn't run just down the street. I went to California from New Jersey, which is right across the country, right?
Wow.
So I don't even know how this all happened, but I decided I was going to be free and live the life of the avant-garde or something. So I went to California, and I ended up in a girls' detention home, because then it wasn't instant. They knew where you were, you know. It was, they didn't know. They knew that somebody was looking for me in New Jersey. So they put me in what they, you know, a holding place. So it was a girls' detention home. Wow. And it's actually, that whole story of running away is a book, because during that whole time, I met an actor named Robert Ridgely, and I didn't know who he was. He was pretty well known. He had been the star of a TV series, The Gallant Men. And I met him on the plane, and he helped me get into the Hollywood Studio Club for girls. And I ended up in a girls' detention home. But anyway, after my father came to get me, he came and got me, and I was so relieved and so happy. Oh, daddy, thank you. I'm out of here. And on the trip home, he said, well, what are you going to do? You can't just stop being educated. You have to, continue. And we talked about maybe going to music school or, something I was interested in, because I didn't see myself, taking algebra and geometry in a liberal arts program or anything. And there were a lot less options then. There were music schools didn't teach the music business. There was no pop music in traditional music schools. It was Berkeley, and there was Juilliard, and both of those places we found out you needed to know how to read music and know theory, and I didn't know any of that. I just sang since birth, and wrote. And I had no clue as to what I was doing. So I didn't qualify for that. And then we thought maybe acting school. I had never really acted, but thought, well, it's kind of a similar, you're on stage. So I auditioned for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I got in, and I went to school and graduated from the American Academy of Dramatic. And that is, I realized I was too shy and inhibited to go to auditions. That was a big problem, When you're an introvert, you have to get over that barrier of, letting people see you. So I had roommates, and they would all go to auditions and get the trade papers and read casting calls and things. And I never went, but there was one audition, and it was for a girl who played the guitar and sang. Now, girls didn't play guitar then. It really wasn't a thing, Joan Baez was a folk singer who played guitar, but, there weren't, now there's guitars in model homes. You go to a model home to see a house, and there'll be a guitar. But guitars were, an odd instrument, and men played guitars, So I played guitar, and I sang, and they wanted a girl to play Barbara Allen in a musical, a dark, strange, eclectic musical called Dark of the Moon. Yeah. And I just said, I felt like it was, a calling. So I went to the audition, and sure enough, I knew the office building. It was a skyscraper in New York, but I didn't have the room number. I knew the name of the group that was putting the audition on, and I saw the doorman. At that point, there was a very official doorman with a uniform, epaulets, and a hat, and he would tip his hat to the people going in, "Good morning, Mrs. So-and-so," and then he would turn his head and mutter things like, he must have had what we call Tourette's syndrome, because he and he would, "Good morning, Mr. So-and-so," and these little profanities would come out of his mouth. Wow. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, this is the office building, and I know that audition is happening in there, and I have to figure out how to find out where. So I finally got up the nerve to walk up to this doorman, and I said, "Do you know where they're auditioning for Dark of the Moon?" And he looked at me, and it was one of those Twilight Zone moments, Yeah. He looked at me, and it seemed like everything got real quiet. He made eye contact, and he said, "Go to room 511. They're always doing weird things there." So I said, okay. So I went in, I went up the elevator to 511, and I went into the office of Hugo and Luigi, and they were music publishers. I didn't know what a music publisher was. I thought that was somebody who prints sheet music, because I remember my mom had sheet music and a fake book, and it would say published by, So I wasn't impressed, at this. I said, "Are you doing," there was a receptionist out in this kind of an office-y green, filing cabinets, not very nice looking, office. And I said, "Are they doing Dark of the Moon here?" And she looked at me like I was, from another planet, and said, no, you have the wrong room. And I started to cry. Wow. So she said, wait, let me see. And she looked at her building directory. She found where they were doing the audition for Dark of the Moon. And she sent me off, and I knew when I auditioned, they had me read with different people and they had me come back. And so I knew I had the part.
Yeah.
And I went back to her after and thanked her. And while I was thanking her, Hugo and Luigi came in. Now I have a guitar. And the actual people who wrote Fools Rush In, you know, they wrote major hits. And they said, "What's this, Joyce? Does she want to audition?" And I'm looking at them like, what are they talking about? And she said, "Well, no, she was auditioning." And he said, "Set her up for Thursday." So I came back. Wow. And through that meeting, I walked into their inner office, which was Louis XIV matching gilded golds, everything, you know, plush thick carpet and these desks that faced each other. And, this it looked like a museum in there. So they said, "Well, we're working on a Broadway musical and we don't have time, but we just hired a producer, Peter Schekeryk, and he heads our production company and he's coming in, I don't know when, Wednesday. So why don't you come back and sing for him?" So I did, and the rest is history. I married Peter. We had a hit record, and that is how it happened. And I know it was a long story, but...
Well, I just want to ask a question that goes right back to the start of that story, really, because you mentioned in your song, Brand New Key, that you don't drive. So if that's true, how did you get all the way to California?
I went on a plane.
Ah, okay.
Yes, and then it was all you do is show up at the airport with a ticket, and you could have a different name on the ticket.
Oh.
You didn't have to have ID to fly. You just got on a plane.
Yeah.
As long as you had a ticket, you could get on the plane. So I was Eve Dane. I picked that name, and when I got on the plane, I just happened to sit next to Robert Ridgely, who was later on, ironically, he was in Boogie Nights, which is the movie that used Brand New Key.
Wow.
And I never thanked him, and I never got to meet him later after I became, a name. Yeah. I always wanted to meet him. And when I saw the movie and it said Robert Ridgely, but unfortunately next to his name was his born and his died date.
Oh.
So I was like, oh my God, that opportunity, to say what happened. And now he's in the movie that my song is in. I don't even know if he knew that it was me.
That would be weird. I mean, would he have had any influence over the music in that film? Or
no, I none. In fact, they said that there would be no explicit sex during that song. But they, of course, lied.
Oh, yeah. Well, you actually wrote that song. Well, you came up with it anyway in McDonald's, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I wrote it. It occurred to me after I was obsessed with my health because I kept getting sick. I was a vegetarian and I wasn't doing well as a vegetarian, but I kept pursuing different types of vegetarian. I was a fruitarian. I was a breatharian. I was an ovo vegetarian. I was a ovo pesca vegetarian. Anyway, nothing was really working. And I was in a really, a place where I was being in front of people all the time, and it was very stressful, and I kept getting ill. So someone told me, go to the health farm of Dr. Bernard Jensen. And he was the father of iridology in America, which is they read the little spots in the middle of your eyeball, in your iris. There are little different spots, and they're very telling of, weaknesses of your physiology. Anyway, he was recommended, and I went out there. And I had a few weeks before a very big, important, I think it was Carnegie Hall that I was about to do. Wow. And I was sick and it was really a disaster. So I went out there and he put me on a fast on nothing but water. And I was on this fast. Actually, he wanted me to break the fast, but I was like seeing God, you know. So I was like, no, I'm going to fast as long as Jesus. So, so it was just, what I was doing. So I was, he said, Melanie, I think it's time to break the fast, and you're going to know your perfect diet because you're so cleansed and in tune with who you are. And so I believed him, and I went home and I broke the fast, just as he said, on partially cooked grated carrot, a teaspoon of juice, just very, very gradually. I went home, and I was really loved going to flea markets. So there was one near where I lived in New Jersey called English Town. And I was there at 4 a.m. with my flashlight, and you'd come home with a big bag of stuff for $10, Wow. And I would go, what's your dealer's price, And so I was going home, and I smelled something, and I was hungry, and it was McDonald's, and we pulled in, and I thought, well, Dr. Jensen said I was going to know what to have. So I went from being a vegetarian faster to I got the whole combo, the burger and the fries and the fiberglass milkshake. And there I finished my last bite of burger, and this idea of learning how to roller skate. And I don't know, maybe it was the smell of rancid grease or something. And I was like, I just had this whoosh of memory, and remembering my dad holding the back of my bike and riding. And that song just popped into my head. I finished it when I got home. Peter heard it and said, what's that? I said, oh, just some little song, And he said, no, do that part again. And I got a brand new anyway. I said, no, it's just a silly song, I write every day. I still do. And I didn't really think of it as, something that could be a hit record. And my husband heard it, and he was a producer, a shameless hit record producer. And he said, no, Melanie, that's a hit. And I went, no, if that's a hit. And I will just interject this quickly. I was already not considered one of the girls, I wasn't, again, angular and serious. And I was just considered a little too bit of Woodstock fluff, there wasn't any relevance, to what was going on. But that was, the Rolling Stone take on who Melanie was. And I always felt that, attacked by the Rolling Stone. And so I thought, oh my God, if this is a hit record, I'm doomed to be cute for the rest of my life. And it's exactly what happened. And oddly enough, that was on my own record label. I had started Neighborhood Records, and I figured I was going to have artistic freedom, and I didn't like the way they were packaging me, and kind of pushing me to be a certain way. So I thought this record label would be freedom. And that was, I didn't realize I was slapping the face of a lot of big people. The only artists who had their own major label were the Beatles, Apple Records. And here I was with, who do I think I am kind of thing, but it was all unbeknownst to me, and I proceeded to make enemies in high places.
Yeah. And an interesting thing about that song is you came up with it in McDonald's, and it was actually featured in a McDonald's advert once. I
know, and I didn't get paid a penny for it.
Outrageous behavior.
Oh, it is. It's really outrageous. It's an ongoing. We're talking about releasing an anniversary. It's the 50th anniversary of Gather Me, which is the album that Brand New Key was on. And I'm releasing it through a human rights a record label
Ah.
called Article 27 Music. So we'll see how that goes. I need Paul McCartney's lawyer, you know.
Yeah. I suppose the McDonald's excuse might be that you wrote it there, so it belongs to them.
No, I don't think they even thought about it. I think it just got wheedled away from me. And I mean, the powers that be in the industry just hope I'll go away, but I won't.
And this is an annoying question because you've probably been asked it a million times, particularly by people from the UK. But what do you think of Combine Harvester?
Oh, I didn't think anything bad at all. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was cute and adorable, and I loved the accent, and it was such a funny song that how could you not like it? But and of course, if it had been the B-side, some say I got devil. I might have been upset if they did a parody on that, but because it was brand new key, it was just a fun song anyway. So why not further it?
So you definitely weren't thinking, "Look what they've done to my song, ma."
No. That happened in the studio when it was quite literal. Peter would have a song, and even before, to me, a song has to live before an audience before it really becomes what it is. But it a lot of times, because the demand was, a couple of albums every year, or one a year at least. And because of that, the song sometimes didn't get a chance to live before it was recorded. And it was kind of like, look what they've done to my song. But it's a great analogy for look what they've done to anything, and especially in the arts, when somebody creates something and a movie is made from a book or something like that. And the author says, that's not what I wanted, and that's not who I wanted to play that person. But once you create something, it's born, and you do lose a certain amount of artistic control over what it is. But no, look what they've done to my song, Ma. I love that song. In fact, that's the song that brought me and Miley Cyrus together. And we sang that song together. And it's just opened. It's amazing. I'm always absolutely floored to think that a song I wrote 50 years ago is being used and played and is as relevant to whatever it's being lent to, that it still has something that's what a song is. A song isn't a hit. A song is either a song that people are going to, it touches a certain place in a person, and it touches people in different ways. I'm so grateful that I'm able to still, and even better now, because time has a way of what I used to take so seriously, like, how people perceived me and things like that. It means so little when your song has its own life, and it lives through all the people who come to see me. It's great. I'm so happy I lived long enough to, I'm glad I didn't die at 27.
Oh, yeah. That wouldn't be particularly pleasant.
No, I would never have found out, I would have.
And I love the kind of backyard sessions that you did with Miley Cyrus, because she's a current star, and it's fair to say that you were a star in the 70s and 60s. So it's sort of an intergenerational thing coming together.
Yeah, that was really cool. And we're both one name people, and
that's true.
Our names both start with M. And when we first, she said, when we first started talking, she had done "Look What They've Done to My Song, Ma" in her early backyard session, where she was kind of a granola cookie. You know what I mean? She had a bun, and the back of her, the nape of her neck, and it was a different Miley incarnation. And when she said we have to do something together, that was right after Wrecking Ball. So the first thing that came out of my mouth when she said that was, "What do I wear?"
Yeah.
I mean, I just pictured the two of us on wrecking balls.
Yeah.
But people are so hard on celebrities, and I understand. They think things. Like the Dire Straits song, "I Want My MTV."
Yeah.
We've got to pick up microwave ovens, and look at that. Look at that. Look at that guy over there.
Yeah.
He's got a millionaire. And, people don't realize what it is. You're such a moving target. So I no matter what a person does musically or visually or where they lend their talent, I don't judge them, because it's really a hard life.
Yeah.
Being a celebrity. I mean, I will say that it's become an industry where it's not about the music at all. And to me, that's a shame for the people who are the audience, because they don't get that emotional support from the music that they buy. I mean, they get told that it's their emotional support, but it's not actually, they don't run home with their vinyl and read the liner notes and what it took and everything about the making of the album and all the photos. And it was really a big moment when somebody, like when Joan Baez came out with an album. I took that album. It was, every detail was so important to me in my room by myself. It gave me an uplifting. It was really a strong emotional support. Music wasn't just the flavor of the month, it was important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like, a lot of people are really missing out. And that's why a lot of kids, gravitate toward 60s music, because there was a lot of people were talking about things that you don't hear about anymore in music,
Yeah, absolutely. There seems to be a kind of resurgence of 60s music in younger people. I wonder why that is.
Well, I wonder. I guess because, the alternative is pretty much one note, where one song just kind of runs into another, and it's all this sort of ambulance sirens or something, there's a and then there was the occasional whoa or something, but it's not I think there was some statistic that all of the top 40 hits or whatever they're called now are written by two different guys.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's one Swedish guy and one American guy, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, that's an impossibility unless there is really a major control. And I've already been talking way too much, and I'm I've been not banned on Facebook, but I think I don't reach all my followers anymore. Yeah. I think beautiful people might have been the clincher, I don't think they want anybody thinking that, they developing a kind of wariness about each other, Of course, if you're terrified that you're going to be sick because you're next to someone, even if it's your mother or father or sister or best friend, then you develop this distance. A distance gets formed. And I'm not trusting what's going on now, right?
Yeah, I guess that's something that people haven't really talked about enough, that once this is over, a lot of people will just be scared to do anything again.
Yeah, it starts to become like, it started with this, everybody doing that instead of a hand. An open hand is it's so vulnerable, It's just like, an open hand holding another hand.
Yeah.
It's so meaningful. Two fists coming together.
Yeah, that's aggressive.
Or elbows or something. It's just your elbow is definitely not the same.
And my understanding is that COVID doesn't really spread from touching hands anyway, right? So you might as well.
Oh, there's so much misinformation. And again, I mean, the censorship is just out. I can't believe what that they're allowed to do, in supposedly the name of free speech. And it's all been politicized as well. It has nothing to do with politics. It's your health and what you want in your body, and people are finding out. That's all I can say.
Yeah, absolutely. The world's got a bit wonky.
Wonky, yes. I love that word.
Yeah.
Very wonky, totally.
Now, one thing I didn't really realise before researching you was that there were only 3 women to perform at Woodstock, and they were Joan Baez, Janis Joplin, and somebody that you might be familiar with by the name of Melanie. Who was that?
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. And I was actually in England during the whole year before the festival went on. And the only reason I got to be in it was that the people who were organizing it were in the same office building as Peter, my husband's office. And, somehow it worked. Yeah, you should be there, And I had no idea. It was called the Aquarian Exposition, the original name. It wasn't called Woodstock. It was called the Aquarian Exposition. And the early art was very deco or nouveau, beautiful poster that I had. And it turned out, that they were going to have it at Woodstock, and then the town rejected the idea, and then they had to find some place to have it. And they had Max Yasgur opened his farm, and the rest is history. But I was in England. I was writing a film score, and John Campbell was the arranger, and it was all kind of exciting stuff. I think the Rolling Stones were in the studio next door, and I was doing these like kind of showcase things. I had never met a famous person before.
Wow.
The first famous person I met, well, he wasn't famous yet, was Rod Stewart in The Faces. And but I did, again, he wasn't a big deal yet, really. He was in a group, a guy in a group. So but this was my, I thought maybe this will be me, behind the scenes. I think I preferred that, at that point. And yet there is something about being in front of audiences that is like nothing else. It's just, you become who you are, because somehow they can see you, and that projection becomes, you understand who that is, and I know now that, I mean, my audiences have created Melanie. I would just have been a potter, making pots in North Carolina or something. That I did actually, after my first year of acting school, I thought, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm going to be a potter. I loved working with clay. And so I thought, that's what I'll do. And I was investigating different glazes, and I was very into pottery. But I learned how to throw pots. You throw the clay on and learn how to center it. It's very zen, and but that wasn't to be. I met Peter the next year, and I had a hit record. Some people get to pay dues before they're successful. I didn't pay any dues before I was successful, except in the angst of my life. But I didn't actually, have to struggle and work and do gigs and be a waitress or any of that. I met Peter. All of a sudden I had a hit record. It was called Beautiful People. And the rest, we kept releasing songs. I didn't get a chance to decide whether I was going to be a singer. It just happened. And so
Yeah. And Woodstock, the song Lay Down, Candles in the Wind, was actually inspired by performing there, wasn't it?
Candles in the Rain.
I was thinking of Elton John for a second.
I know, everybody does. Hi, Elton. Reggie, we're here, and I am being told that I wrote your song. No. But it was Candles in the Rain, and it was inspired by that hillside lighting up. And I was at Woodstock. I was at the field early on in the day, right after Richie Havens was performing, when I descended the field in a helicopter, and I thought I was on next, and I wasn't. And I spent the whole day in this little tent in terror. I was all by myself. There was no one with me. I didn't have a roadie. My mom drove me up to Woodstock, but when we got to the helicopter, the guy in charge said, "Oh, who's this?" And I said, "It's my mother." And he said, "Oh, no, Mom. Sorry, Mom. Bye, Mom." And I got in the helicopter by myself. And the terror was mounting. Again, I had never met famous people before. And when I got to the hotel where I was told to meet, there was Sly Stone, and Janis Joplin was surrounded by media, microphones, and she's slugging Southern Comfort. And I'm like, I'm in the wrong place. I've got to get out of here. And I was Melanie, and I went to the helicopter, and why am I going in a helicopter? I've never been in a helicopter. I don't like helicopters. And there I was, I descended the field and waited all day in a little tent with a dirt floor and a box. And I thought I was going to die. I really did. First of all, everybody had a band, everybody had, and they all had hit records, and they'd all been on television, and they'd all, been on covers of magazines and stuff. And here I was, basically I was an unknown. I had what was then called a turntable hit, and it was Beautiful People, but maybe 1% of that audience connected that song with the person on that stage. Anyway, I waited all day, and I prayed to God that something would happen and they would change their mind and I didn't have to go on. And it had started to rain, and I thought, thank you, God. You've answered my prayers. They're going to all go home, right? Everybody's going to go home. So it was the first day of the festival, and I really, really, really thought, everybody will go home. It's raining. They're not going to sit here in the rain. And I was very wrong. I was in this reverie of thinking, I'm saved. And somebody came in and said, you're on next. Only this time it was for real. Because all throughout the day people came over and you're next. Never mind. And so, I was it was like I was going to face a firing squad, and people asked me, how was it hanging out with Jimi Hendrix? And no, I didn't hang out with anybody. I was in my tent with a dirt floor, and all the big stars were in this big area. They had a big tent with upper echelon amenities. In fact, my one cuddly Woodstock moment before I went on was Joan Baez sent over her assistant, and she said, excuse me, Joan heard you coughing, because I developed this deep bronchial cough, and it sounded like demons, it really it got deeper and deeper and louder and louder, and it's a wonder I could sing at all by the time I coughed all day. And Joan Baez sent over a pot of tea with lemon and honey. And I thought, Joan Baez, this is my idol, I went out to imitate Joan Baez, and definitely didn't get that right at all. But, this was an impossibly wonderful, cuddly moment. And I always wanted to tell her about it. Have no idea whether she remembers it or not. She was just a good person trying to help somebody she heard suffering. So, but that was my Woodstock moment. And when I realized I was going on that stage for real, and I'm walking toward that plank, I'm walking on that wooden plank to my certain doom, I actually left my body.
Wow.
And I wasn't altered by drugs. I was a purist. I had been on fasts. I'm a vegetarian. Now I was told I have to eat meat once in a while. That's the kind of body type, blood type. Everything was wrong for vegetarianism. So there I was, walking on the stage, and I wasn't in my body anymore. And I actually saw my performance. I can see where I wasn't in my body.
Right.
And I always felt that the phenomenon of me at Woodstock was I walked on the stage an unknown person and walked off the stage a celebrity.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's very funny because I would tell this story of experiencing being a spiritual being, basically, rather than a body. I could see my body, and but I, who I am, was not in it. Yeah. I watched it, and I believe that the 500,000 people who were there got to see that too, whether they knew what was happening or not. And wow. I so resonated with that crowd. It was incredible. And they didn't know any of those songs. In fact, I was, I'm going to do a Woodstock 3 days of peace, love, and music, and I'm going to do my exact set. I had never, ever since Woodstock done that set. Wow. I don't know how I came up with those songs. It was all the spur of the moment. It wasn't like, well, Melanie, you have a new album, so push this, or, make sure you sing that or something. In fact, Birthday of the Sun was a song I had just written.
Wow.
And hardly had it down when I sang it in front of all that, those people. And I mean, what was I thinking to do a brand new song that nobody had ever heard? And none of those songs had been heard except maybe, again, Beautiful People. Yeah. And when I say turntable hit, that is something that can't happen anymore because all of radio is controlled. And, DJs don't play just what they want. They play what they're told to play. And Beautiful People was just found by a DJ in New York called Roscoe. And he played Beautiful People, and it became like an underground, it went viral before there was such a thing. And I was on Radio Caroline, Radio Veronica, out in the ship, and it was really an exciting time, feeling like you're going against the powers that be that were evil, but they got that nipped in the bud very quickly.
Yeah, I guess you're a big part of history then, being on the pirate radio stations.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah,
I think they sponsored my concert at the Drury Lane Theater, which we finally recovered and we released it, and that was with the incredible string band, Mike Herron and Robin Williamson. So.
Yeah.
That was it was a great concert. That is out somewhere. And I am, by the way, I'm totally independent. My husband passed away, which left me in a totally different universe. My son and I performed together. Yeah. And again, we're going to do this online show on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, if we can get it together. So I'll send you any information I have, and hopefully you can tell people.
Absolutely.
Because it's short notice, but hey, this is instant. Everything is instant. So, but I'm going to do the set that I originally did at Woodstock, and it ended with Birthday of the Sun, which I had just written. And it's incredible. And the funny thing is, people, kids, especially if they come to the concert, they'll say, do Birthday of the Sun. And I think, I never do that song. I've never, but that was the one that was on one of the Woodstock albums. So that's, a lot of people have that. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn it.
And another festival that you performed performed at was, of course, kind of Britain's flagship music festival, Glastonbury. So what was that like? Was that fun?
Again, I was working so much. I had so many shows that were booked, and this and Glastonbury was this magical thing that was we were all going to be transported to another universe or something. that was that year. I don't know. It might have been the second Glastonbury, but I was very, very exhausted when I got there, and they let me rest in the farmhouse, and it was incredible. There was such a mixed group of people. There were people, and in England, I always thought they truly dramatized the hippie look. It was the costumes, I'll call them costumes, were much more elaborate than they were in the States. In the States, people wore hippie clothes, whatever they found in their closet, or altered their, dad's shirt or something, tie-dyed something. But in England, people were beautiful, It was like, oh, wow, this was incredible. Layers of clothing and scarves, and I was a fan of Sulamith Wolfing, and her art was very Celtic inspired. And when I saw what people were wearing in England, I was so impressed, But they really took it to the max. It was much more personified in England. And so I was really excited about that. And then there were like guys in leather jackets, with making their own beer and giving me some, But it was just a great eclectic mix of people. And I rested in the farmhouse, and I did a show, and it was pretty amazing. In fact, a writer, his name is Mark Patras, wrote a book called Gigs That Changed the World. And he was there and saw my show and wrote about it. It's always nice when somebody can articulate your moment, So, it was pretty spectacular. And I would say I was a lot more there. I didn't leave my body. I was there the whole time. And again, I was unaltered. And it was very magical. It really was. And I did a reunion. I don't remember what year, a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so, a Glastonbury reunion. But it was so sad, really, for me, because I'm sure people have a good time, and I'm not taking anything away from it, but it just it didn't have that humanity, that it did then. And in fact, recently, somebody had said, Melanie, could you do Glastonbury? And the people who were in charge said, oh, no, we'd rather her fans remember her as she was.
That's a bit weird.
They refused me.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that.
Yeah, it's a bit of an insult, really.
Oh, you think? No. I mean, yeah, sure. Well, what happens? You hopefully you get older. That's what's supposed to happen. And although I really do think it is backwards, and that it would be better if we started out old and then progressed to be younger and younger, and end up that way rather than the other way around. But I didn't create the whole thing, I have very little to say about how it's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you're Benjamin Button, you're going to start out young and be old.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I guess it's only fair though if it happens to everyone else as well, I think, because in his case, he was sort of left out and couldn't really have any kind of relationship.
Aww.
So,
yeah, it has to be everybody the same way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess you'll feel better about yourself. As time goes on, you start looking younger and...
Yeah, feeling more energetic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. So what have you been working on more recently in terms of musical projects and anything?
Well, it was very difficult because I was a full-time performer. And then, I was an unessential worker, a non-essential worker. And all the opportunities, I totally didn't believe that this was going to happen. I bought my airline ticket for a venue in Seattle, Washington. And people were saying, oh, I don't know, that's like ground zero for COVID. And I said, oh, please, come on. So the venue said, no, we're doing it, but we have to go new guidelines. We can only have, a certain amount of people in the venue, but we're still putting it on. So I bought my airline ticket and had my hotel reservation. And the day that I was going to fly, it was off. The venue said, no, we're not allowed to have a show. And that was, what do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, what do I do? So we started investigating, doing live Facebook shows. And there were so many glitchy things that happened with those. And also, getting support monetarily is, very difficult in that situation. So, we start thinking of ways to survive. I'm in the same boat as a lot of other people, so many people. I thought, it was kind of cool that Eric Clapton said he won't perform in a place that discriminates. But because I think it's evil to pit people against each other like this, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, and the vaccinated who are dying and the vaccinated who are sick, and, the unvaccinated who are getting the things from the vaccinated, shedding and spike proteins and all the misinformation and the hypocrisy, anyway, I just keep singing, and I'm doing these online shows, and hopefully you people in the UK will come and see me. And that's one great thing about this platform that we found is the show is on for 3 days. It's pay what you can. Yeah. And it's up for 3 days, any time of the day or night. Because that was another thing. What time should I do the show? If it's 3 p.m, it's 9:00 at night in England. And it's brutally early in Australia. And, so what do you do? But this platform, they have it so that it's up for 3 days. And you want to come, you can see it. And you don't have to pay anything, or you can be kind and do what you can. Yeah. So.
And I suppose one benefit, probably the only benefit really to having to do shows online, is that people can watch you without having to get on a plane and see you if they live far away.
That's true. Or trains or buses or whatever. Yeah. It's true. And me too. I don't have to travel. I travel, from one room to another. But and that is nice. But I'm going to tell you, I miss the rapport. I miss that communication that goes both ways. And, live comments don't do it. And, you don't know who's out there watching you. With this platform, you actually sign up and you get an assigned ticket, So I'm really happy about it. It's called Anywhere Seat, I think, right?
Hey, you don't even have to sign up.
You don't sign up.
No, you just literally get a code and then boom.
Oh, you go online, you get a code, and then you're there.
There's an email we can send.
It's Anywhere Seat, right?
But there would be a link, and we can send directly a link to him.
Oh, I can send you a link. You want to see me, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I will.
All right. Well, you have no excuse. It's on for 3 days. you can, give me your email.
It's just...
Okay, you're going to get an email from a strange email. My last name, which is, I had the hardest time. That's why I went by Melanie. My original name, Safka, was too ethnic as far as the record labels were concerned.
The easiest thing would be, once we have the link, it'll be on your Instagram and Facebook. So we'll just post that, and then literally you click
I'll post it all on my social media. So
and just click on the link.
They click on the link and they're there. I mean, the first time I did Facebook concerts, and I had all these, I didn't even know what this was, trolls. Trolling and all these, and I imagined an audience full of Beavis and Butthead, and definitely people who wouldn't get me, so.
Yeah, it's weird. People probably just look down on the live streams and find, who should I pick on today?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty mean-spirited group of people out there sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a strange world, and I can't blame them for trying to beat the system.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that you're kind of famous under just your first name of Melanie, and I suppose you were kind of lucky to become famous when you did, because there was Melanie B and Melanie C.
I know.
But you got there first.
I got there first. Melanie. I think the second famous Melanie was Melanie Griffin, the actress. And then there was Melanie B, Melanie C. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, where are we able to keep up to date with you everywhere if we'd like to do that, and also listen to all your music from all the years?
Great, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I have a website. I have Facebook, The Real Melanie. And then I have a Patreon.
Ooh.
I bit the bullet, and I just this year, I decided I'm calling on my dear ones, my fans, my friends from over the years, new people, to help me put out the music that I continue to create. So it's Patreon is one place to find me. And that's really fun. We make it, I do special things for that group. And it almost feels like you're in a club, I've never been much of a club person, but it's cool. And then Bandcamp is, independent music people. And I have a website and Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be posting some sort of a banner, for the live stream show. And I'm out there, I'm as far as mainstream PR, there's not that much, but I'm here, and I still write. In fact, I've written so many songs. We're going to be putting out a new album. We're debating about the title. So anyway, we're going to put that out, and there have been different record labels. I'm going to keep it as independent as I can. Most likely will just be, we do have Article 27 Music, which is coming at it from a human rights point of view. So when I do have the Drury Lane concert on CD from Article 27 Music. And because I have my own tapes. I own my tapes. So it's unbelievable, that I'm in this situation where I don't get compensated for my work over the years. But I believe it's going to change.
Yeah, that's certainly an interesting idea. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. It's very nice of you to take the time.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's nice of me too. I'm going to go cook some meatballs.